morning. So this morning, I'm going to talk about something that honestly I'm still working on, and that's vulnerability. And I'm going to talk about why it's so important, but maybe why some of us kind of struggle with it. For me, vulnerability, it goes to being in the military. Like I was consistently told, and we were all told to suck it up, and people would say, oh, we take care of people, and if you're struggling, come see us. And but that really wasn't what happened in practice. We were really told that you need to be okay. And so I think sometimes we struggle to be vulnerable, because when we are vulnerable, sometimes we're not met with the love and the support, or and I should say the type of support that we need, because sometimes our friends and family, they really try. It's just not everyone is able to hold um, the intense emotions, or they don't know what to say. And this is why I tell people, find a good therapist, find, and I emphasize good, because even some therapists um aren't what we need, as far as holding our intensity and holding the sacred space that we need. And so sometimes we struggle to be vulnerable because we're not met with this type of support that we need. And sometimes I will say it's a projection. There are one of the things that I struggle with is being in the military. I think I was always told that, like, or at least my perception was that I always needed to have my stuff together. I was in charge, and so going into a space and going, okay, like I this is my other face, this is my professional face, this is my, I'm the parent, or I'm the spouse, or I'm the leader, or I'm whatever. We have this perception that in order to be that, we can't ever struggle. And I think as we become vulnerable, one of the things that I learned was I'm not alone. There are a lot of really successful people who still have their days where, I'm struggling. I need someone today, in this moment. But I think that especially in the US, and maybe this is again my perception, but I think we in the US are very, I would say, almost too independent. We sell this idea that you turn 18 and then you move out of the house. That's just what you're supposed to be an adult. And I think there's also this idea that to be independent, that you need to be able to do everything yourself, and you need to, like, you can't, like, if you're struggling, figure it out, you know. And I think we really go to an extreme, and an unhealthy extreme. And for me, like, I've been in different circles, whether it's holotropic breath work or psychedelic circles, different spiritual circles. And sometimes what I struggle with is I come into these circles and there's this spiritual enlightenment, and like you say that you're struggling with a certain thing, and then people are like, oh, you're part of the one, you belong, and connect to the divine. And I'm going, okay, that's all great, and right now I'm struggling. And I think sometimes it's really hard for me when there's this perception, or projection, or even reality, that, oh, like, oh, you're not spiritually enlightened if you're actually still struggling with anger, or if you're sad about something, you're supposed to, like, be able be above that, and I do, like, when I come into a circle, like, one of the things that makes me feel more comfortable and more safe to be vulnerable is when other people are vulnerable. I'm like, oh, okay, great. We're all human here. We're all not enlightened and above feeling, human emotions. And so, like, when I come into a circle, like, that's one thing that really makes me feel comfortable is, oh, okay, like, people are willing to be authentic, and they're willing to be vulnerable, and they're willing to actually put what they're struggling with out to the group, because in hearing what they're struggling with and hearing how they're navigating it, a lot of times I'm like, oh yeah, like that really resonates with me. Like I struggle with that too. um and it just makes me feel like I'm not so dysfunctional. I'm not so broken. I'm human, just like the rest of us. But I do think that sometimes it's reality. Sometimes that is how people behave, is that, oh, you shouldn't be sad, you shouldn't be angry. And sometimes I do think it's a projection, because we've learned, which we can unlearn and we can relearn something healthy. That you have to be a certain way in order to be competent, in order to be together, in order to be strong. There's all these perceptions. Um, and I think it's important to be human. Like, I think part of enlightenment is being connected to the divine, to our higher self, to God, to whatever you want to call it. So stay in connection with that, but also part of enlightenment is having that knowledge and that connection and still being human, still having the human experience. And so I think to be vulnerable is spiritual. To be vulnerable is divine. And I find that when I am vulnerable, like it opens this beautiful door for people to really know me, and to really connect to me, because one of my like biggest desires in life is for people to really know me and to really connect with me and to understand me. And I struggle to be vulnerable sometimes. And so it's like this self-defeating desire. Like, if I want to be connected, if I want people to really know me, like I want them to know all parts of me, not the part of me that has put on this mask and pretended that every day is a beautiful day and it's rainbows and sunshine and unicorns, and I never struggle with anything. Um and so, but it's hard. I will say, like, even in breathwork circles, I prefer a longer, even like double weeks, because it takes me a bit to kind of feel into the group, to kind of start to feel their vulnerability, to feel their shields coming down. And when their shields come down, like, I feel more comfortable bringing my shield down. It's like, back in the days of the knights, it reminds me of, lifting your visor. It was saying, like, oh, this is who I am. This is my vulnerable spot. I've now opened up my armor, so that you can see me. And it's the same thing with people. When we're vulnerable, it's like, okay, I'm willing to let you in, even if just a little bit, so that you can really get to know me. And that is so beautiful. And when we're putting on the face, it's exhausting. Like I've spent decades putting on the face, and trying to pretend that everything is always okay, and I'm always in charge, and I'm always, put together, and that's exhausting. And that energy, I think, would be better spent going, okay, I'm not okay, and I need to put energy towards becoming okay. And I think part of of that is when you admit that I'm not okay, it allows people to help you. um, and I will say that going back to what I talked about at the beginning is we do need to be kind of discerning on who we're vulnerable with, because not everyone is able to hold that, and sometimes it does make us feel worse, because there are friends in our lives that they're like, oh, you're struggling, let's go out and get you drunk, you'll feel better, or let's go hook up with somebody, that'll make you feel better, or oh, buck up, this will pass, you'll be okay, you're strong, everybody loves you. And you're just like, oh, that was so unhelpful, as much as they try. And there are people that do have this expectation that you're just supposed to be okay all the time, and they can't hold it. And I would say that a lot of times when people can't hold it, it's because we're all really doing the best that we can, and some days we're just struggling to hold ourselves together. And so, taking on someone else's stuff, it's too much, and so I think that's really the difference between someone who is in the space, knows how to hold the space, because even even really being there for a person is not taking on their stuff. Sometimes it is going, okay, I'm just here to listen. I'm here just to be a sacred witness to what you're going through. And I will say, there are people in my life, and if you're listening to this, you might know who you are, and I love you. um, but you'll just want someone to hear you, to know where you're at, and they'll start to give you advice. They'll start to fix it because they're fixer people and they want to help and they don't want to see you in pain. And that's all coming from a place of love. And there are times where I say, oh, no, 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 no. I don't need you to fix it. I don't need advice. I really just need you to hear me. Because really, like, I have gotten to a point where, and if I want advice, I will ask for it. Maybe I'm still working on that too. But generally speaking, if I need help, if I need advice, then I will ask for it. Um, but when I don't, I really am cultivating my inner healer, my inner wisdom, really connecting to that higher self that isn't tainted by life, that really doesn't give me advice based on a place of fear or rejection or my childhood wounds or my adult wounds. It really gives me a clear advice, like really good advice. And so that's really my goal, is to stay in connection with that. So sometimes when I'm talking to someone, I'm not looking for advice. I'm not looking for you to fix it. I'm just looking for the connection. I just want you to know. And sometimes it is a, hey, like, I just want you to know where I am right now, because if I start to withdraw a little bit, I start to become a little introspective. I need some time to regenerate. So sometimes that's really what I'm saying. I'm not saying I need you to fix it. I'm just saying, okay, being vulnerable here, like, I need a little space. Um, so being vulnerable can offer us a lot, if we allow ourselves to do it. And again, finding the right people, and really cultivating that relationship and letting each other know that, hey, this is what I need right now. I'm telling you this and I'm being vulnerable, but here's what I need. Um, and there's different spaces, and I think this is what I really love about, like, the holotropic breathwork spaces, is that it's one of the few spaces, and like I said, I've been in different groups, but it's one of the few spaces where, like, I've always been allowed to show up just as I was, in all of my vulnerability, on my messiest days, on my best days. And no one tries to fix it. And that's part of the holotropic paradigm, is we're not here to give you advice. We're just here to hold space so that you can be vulnerable, so that you can connect to your higher self, to your inner healer, to your inner wisdom, and so that you can work it out. Because I think there's an interdependence in that. Like, I don't need you to fix it, and I know you're here for me. You're holding space for me. You're the sacred witness. And that's what I have really appreciated about the holotropic breath work. Um, but the big message that I want you to take away from today is that, sometimes in our independence, we're really unhealthy. And we're not meant to be completely independent. We're meant to be interdependent. We're meant to be in this together. That's part of the humankind. We're in this together, on our good days and our bad days, for better, for worse. We're in it together, and people don't know what you need if you're not willing to be vulnerable, and they can't really connect because they're not connecting to you. They're connecting to a face, to a facade, to an illusion. And so if we really want to connect and we really want support, like, we have to take a risk to be vulnerable with the right people, at the right time. Because sometimes there are certain people, they're great when they're having their good day, and some days, they're not. And that doesn't mean that they're not a person I can be vulnerable with. It's just not today. And I have my days where I go, ooh, okay, overwhelmed today. I'm not your person today. And I love you, but I'm not your person today. And that's okay to also vocalize what you need. It's not abandoning anybody. And this is why I will always recommend, like depth in your support network. Because there's no person who is always gonna be able to be there for you in the exact way that you need it every single day. I mean, everybody goes through this human experience. But that's a different talk. But today is about vulnerability and about really getting people to letting people know the real you, even on the days you're struggling. And so, until next time, I hope that you will take a little bit of a chance, and I don't mean, because I've seen this trend lately, where people will put their worst days out on Facebook. And I see the responses that they get, and ooh, ow, like, okay, like, oh, this will pass, it'll be great. Like, I'm like, oh, like when you put it out there on Facebook, you don't really know what you're gonna get back. And so maybe that's not the place that I would recommend to be vulnerable, um, because I do think you open yourself up, to some unhelpful advice or some even hurtful advice. Um, but that I have gone on a tangent. I was, but vulnerability, yes. I hope that you are able to allow yourself to be vulnerable with the right people at the right time, so that people can really get to know, that beautiful landscape that includes all of that: your anxious part, your sad part, your angry part, your happy part, your joyful part, your adventurous part. Like, all of those are you. And if people get to know all of those parts, like, it's this beautiful, authentic, connection. And so that's what I really hope for you, is this beautiful, authentic connection. So until next time, I will see you then.